and getting you over the hump day with an entire show of hot topics. Nuclear Twitter war. Is President Trump playing a dangerous game by pushing Kim Jong-un's buttons? And should he be spending his time throwing the dishonest and corrupt media awards? Golden Globes blackout? Will Hollywood's leading men follow women's lead by honoring the hashtag #MeToo movement on awards night? Tanya's Truth. Tanya Harding reveals how much she really knew about one of the Olympics' biggest scandals, the plot to attack Nancy Kerrigan. Plus, Blackish star Yara Shahidi is guest co-hosting. Let's go! Let's light up Hot Topics with Whoopi, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
Guest co-host today. She's the star of the Golden Globe nominated series Blackish and the brand new series Grownish. Yara Shahidi, welcome. So Grownish is a big new show that we're going to be talking about shortly. But we first want to get to another big issue. And it's all about who's got the bigger butt.
Oh, yeah.
Who's got the bigger butt? The tweeter-in-chief mocked North Korea's Kim Jong-un yesterday, saying that the nuclear button on his desk is much bigger and more powerful at his works. Is this kind of a crazy game we're playing?
You know, Trump needs to be medicated and hospitalized at this point, or he is going to just kill all of us. And, you know, my feeling is that probably they're getting closer to him in the Mueller investigation. And that's what this is about, a lot of it. It's like he'll blow the whole world up so his stupid sons don't have to go to jail.
I mean, I just keep on wondering, you know, is there some sort of theory here? Is there some sort of strategy that he's using? Because if truly he is just playing a game of chicken with a dictator in North Korea, we really are in trouble. I mean, people are talking about the 25th Amendment, and they're saying he's just not mentally fit to be the president. And I think if you're doing this, I mean, is there a mental fitness problem? We all know the ramifications of nuclear war.
My turn.
Not to be too heavy. Not to be too heavy,
no,
but
it's true.
First of all, not to bring too much levity to this, but when I first read the tweets last night, I was like, this is an intensely phallic thing to say. This seems to be about all whose is bigger in what context or another, which is why Nikki Haley needs to run for president. We need to have a woman one way or the other taking over. I will say, I keep having friends call me and text me about, like, is there really a button in the White House? Is it like boom and then we nuke? That's not how this works. I just want to say, first, the president will have to convene with military and civilian advisors in D.C. Once the decision is to strike, a senior official in the Pentagon War Room must formally authenticate the code. Then the launch crew takes over. There's a whole set of checks and balances. So while we're all paranoid, wait. I see something, but I think you may have.
your button may be bigger, Whoopi.
I got a big button. I got a big button. And you know what my button does? Nothing. Did it light up? My button used to light up, but my button's old.
We may have those checks and balances here, but he's dealing with a mentally unstable opponent who does not have those checks and balances, as far as I can tell.
Well, he's a dictator. He doesn't have to check or balance with anybody. He just does his thing.
So why play this provocative game back and forth with someone who's almost as crazy as Trump, or maybe more?
Because there's exposure for Guam, there's exposure for Japan, there may be
American soldiers.
American soldiers.
So the reason we've avoided this before is because of the idea of mutually assured destruction.
That's right.
Yes.
And so we understand, like you said, the ramifications of nuclear warfare, and it's not as though we have no feasible way of understanding how this affects everybody, but it speaks to the larger picture of using social media as a platform to communicate and as a platform to implement policy, because he's pushing everyone into a corner by avoiding the natural way in which one makes policy and in which the Obama administration had to act. And so it is fascinating because social media prohibits you from having a constructive conversation, rather you make statements.
Well, is it scary to younger people?
very good take for a 17-year-old.
Right.
I mean, very good take.
Yeah.
She is sharp as a tack.
Not that I didn't expect it, but I mean, when I was 17, I definitely didn't know national
We won't
policy.
hold your age against you.
Like
But
that.
you have to be more woke today, right? I mean, it's scary for young people when you have an administration that's playing chicken with North Korea?
I think part of it is being somebody I'm turning 18 next month, and so I lived most of my young adult life under the Obama administration, and so there's a certain mental agility that had to come into play as soon as the Trump administration was brought into office.
Yeah.
Because there's an emergency to what is happening, and understanding that these policies that are being implemented will affect us, and healthcare affects us so directly.
But where are they?
All of these other states.
Where are the people in power besides Trump? Where is the Republican Party right now, who has all the power in the world to do something about this man? I mean, what do they need? A launch to convince them? What is it that will do it?
I think my question is, what do you want him impeached right this second?
I want him out of office
when we were,
immediately.
but when we were speaking,
No matter how they do it, I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe the 25th Amendment. Maybe that.
so for the Republicans that watch this show, and there are Republicans that watch this show,
Are you sure?
I'm 1,000. Yes, there are. And actually, like, I know it's like a funny joke, but this is the View, and we have different views, and Republicans have a place at this table as well. And part of what's going on. Thank you very much. And the one thing I will
not
say.
nothing, but we've always known that.
Yes.
That's why we look for you. But go ahead. Go ahead. Let him finish the thought.
Question. Hold on. Let me just clarify. I'm talking about the people in power, the Republicans in power. I'm not talking about people who are Republican.
Meaning, what will
They have
do?
less power than they have just as much or less power than I do.
You asked me a direct question about Republicans being in power. I know a few that are in power, Joy, one way or another. But I will say that yesterday we had a heated conversation about when it's time to panic, when it's time to talk about impeaching Trump. And the problem for a lot of conservatives is the day after President Trump was elected, you're already calling for impeachment. Yes, if he gets us into a nuclear war, obviously there's a conversation that should be taking place.
Maybe that should be
in
too
worst
late,
case scenario. He has a core base of supporters, whether you like it or not. Clearly you don't like it. And his approval rating is the exact same place today that it was when he was elected president, with his core base of supporters.
So this is a country that's being ruled by the minority. That's not in the Constitution.
But here's another way to look at this, because people were very freaked out. I think if Jeb Bush had become president, the conversations would be different. But, you talked about the next day. Well, don't forget what happened the next day after Obama was elected. Mitch McConnell came out and said, we're not going to do anything. We're not giving him any help. Literally, just like that. He's going to be a one-term president. So the rhetoric sucks whoever it is.
I wasn't calling for Obama to be impeached.
No, you weren't, but they kind of were, and they were from the time the idea that he wasn't an American was floated. That's all we heard.
I never said that.
No, I know you didn't say it
like that.
But I'm not saying you've done it, just like you didn't say Joy did. But I'm just saying that this idea that people are panicking is quite real, because it's been a long time for folks, I think. Go ahead.
I understand why last night, because again, every time Trump tweets about anything having to do with North Korea, my phone explodes. And I will say, yes, of course, even last night when I was watching the news and it came up, I was like, what, like, why, again, as you said earlier, why are we dictating international diplomacy with an irrational dictator by tweet? I 100% agree with that. What I don't agree with is when he's just tweeting in support of Iranian rebels, that means leads to impeachment. You said yesterday that he shouldn't even be tweeting about that in general. So we have to be judicious and intellectually responsible about when you're talking about when it is DEFCON 1 versus when it's just policy disagreement.
DEFCON 1 now? I mean, I know you said that there's a system of checks and balances, but these people that he is meeting with or will be meeting with, those are his people, right?
Can I ask you a question then? Okay, so he gets impeached. Everybody here comfortable with Mike Pence as president?
More comfortable.
Are you comfortable with Mike Pence as president?
That's what I think about Mike Pence. I think he's...
See, there's booing. Is the problem is like there is no good Republican.
Here's the thing with Mike Pence. Mike Pence, his policies, his personality suck. But I do not believe that Mike Pence will get reelected. He has zero charisma.
I'd be comfortable with your dad sitting near the button.
Yeah.
Well, right.
And he's a Republican.
Can I actually bring you into this? Because I'm curious. You're 17, correct?
Yeah.
You're obviously incredibly politically active, engaged. Who do you think is the hope of the country? Like, if you had a politician you would choose?
I mean, quite honestly, I don't know if I would choose anyone.
So sad.
And I think what it comes down to, and I think it speaks to what my generation is looking forward to, is midterms, because what we're now focusing on is who we can appreciate and who can represent us on a more local level. And so in the House and in the Senate, and who can represent us and be our voice there.
That's right.
And you have a great project that you're working on, right? She was telling us about this great project.
Yeah, it is called 18 by 18 for my generation who is turning 18 this year, who have just recently turned 18, in which midterms will be their first election, to really increase voter engagement, because I think there's a lack of nonpartisan platforms in which we can fully understand the policies that are being affected and how they affect us, and understanding that, okay, we may not be able to vote right now, or we may not be able to vote in the next couple months, but when midterms comes around, the policies that are being implemented, if we don't take action, affect us as young adults and affect our entire country.
Y'all know she's going to Harvard, right?
What is it called again?
Pardon me?
Your initiative.
Oh, it's called 18 by 18.
So just one more thing. When he also tweeted, I guess, that the high airline safety that we've all experienced this year is because of him. He takes credit for the fact that there were no plane crashes this year. There were no asteroids hitting us either. I guess he believes that too. But in other words, I don't trust anything this man says, which is why I don't want him tweeting about Iran or anything else. I think that he is losing it. He says irrational things all the time. And for me, it's like he has to go out of office, period.
So here's the deal. When we come back, because you mentioned Iran, and we want to talk a little bit about that. There's a reason. We'll be right back.
Still ahead, House of Kardashians. How Kris and Kim may be getting too close for comfort these days. See ya 2017.
Bye-bye.
And hello New Year and new views. And in this new year, look who's getting their view on. Drum roll, please. Ashley, Wendy, Meredith, Catherine, Rob, Jordan, plus Rose McGowan on sexual harassment in Hollywood. And when it comes to fearless women, look no further. And oh, did we mention Sarah just had a baby? Wow! So look who's stepping into co-host. Greta Van Susteren and Niecy Nash. Oh yeah, the topics will be hot. Right? New year, new...
Welcome back. So yesterday we were talking about the ongoing anti-government protests happening in Iran right now. And this strikes a bit of a chord for you. Can you explain for folks?
I mean, being half Iranian, I have family in Mashhad where some of the rallies are happening. And I think the larger conversation that I would love to be having right now is more so how to look at this from the humane perspective. When we look at certain countries outside of the United States, we do have a sort of isolationist way of approaching things in which we do not relate. And so for me, when we are looking at these movements, I feel like it is really connected to our own movements in the past, whether it's the Black Lives Matter rallies that have been happening or the Women's March. And so I think for me, it's a matter of showing support for the protesters and showing support in making sure that people are safe and understanding that this is a part of our larger global community and how these things affect us. It's so much more than the Iran nuclear deal. It's so much more than these Trump tweets in favor for or against the government. It's really about the people that are being affected and the idea that they are in a very similar situation in which they were sold an economic plan that does not benefit them, similar to a tax plan that's happening right now. And so it is one of those things in which we have to look at that interconnectivity.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask you, is it true that women are really at the forefront of the protests in Iran?
I mean, I think what's funny is it may be a surprising narrative from some, but my family is a personal matriarchy. And so I come from a lineage of fierce women who are humanitarians who really were so big in terms of even in bringing the sciences into Mashhad and bringing in humanitarian efforts into Mashhad. So that's where my family comes from. And so it's always been a narrative that if you're in Iran, you're familiar with just women being at the forefront of these movements. I think it's a matter of many people realizing it for the first time how involved women are.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where you're just sort of remembering that when people are fighting for their freedom, generally it is the women in the front. It is the women who are going, hey, we're not good, because it's our kids who take our place if it's not us. You know?
Is your family protesting and supporting the protest right now?
As of right now, I don't have families involved in the protests right now. I think it is a difficult thing because Iran has gone through a lot. Even my father left before the revolution, which happened to be a coincidence. But it's one of those things in which people are trying to figure out how to approach this matter and what is the future of Iran and what is the future of this government.
And it's hard, you know, when you bring religion in, and that core belief. I mean, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one because people say, "Well, you're talking against my religion." It's like, no, but when you have a religion that is 50,000 years old, things are going to shift a little bit. Things are going to change. You know, people are going to think differently. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, both the current guy in the White House and his son have been tweeting about the so-called deep state, which is a conspiracy theory that government employees loyal to Obama and Hillary are working behind the scenes to derail his presidency. Well, now, does this seem a little odd? I mean, it's been around a long time, this theory of the deep state. But this, I mean, based on what the Oxford Dictionary says, which is, you know, it's a body of people, typically influential members of government agencies or the military, believed to be involved with the secret manipulation or control of government policy.
Yeah.
Is this
One
like
would think
Scandal?
if this was real, if this was real, do you think he'd still be a sitting president right now?
Isn't he saying that it's on Twitter? Isn't this on Twitter? Where he says that Trump,
it's everywhere.
That on Twitter he's saying that they're telling him who to follow on Twitter. So like Ellen DeGeneres is in here somewhere. That they're telling
in the deep state?
Yeah, they're telling him to follow Ellen DeGeneres.
Well, it is
maybe
worth
the Russians
noting.
are planting this stuff. How does he know? Ask Jared.
Say what?
It's worth noting that 48% of Americans think the deep state exists, according to an ABC This Network poll.
How many?
48% of Americans, and both sides believe it. Both. 46% of Republicans say there's a deep state. 45% of Democrats. 51% of independents.
Is Rowan from B613 running the deep state?
But
that's ridiculous.
The deep state doesn't necessarily have to be a conspiracy about President Trump. It can be a conspiracy about Area 51. It can be a conspiracy about
Area
government
51
agencies.
exists.
Let me tell you. let me tell you the danger.
51%.
Let me tell you the danger of that. Do you remember Pizzagate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they put out this insanity that there was some sort of
A child
thing happening, selling of children.
Yeah. Hillary
out of a pizza joint.
Yeah.
In Washington.
Yeah.
Now, you think somebody would have noticed.
That Hillary was behind.
That's it. Because apparently, according to them, I guess she was sitting there with Bill and counting the kids. I mean, someone got shot because of this insanity.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? When you have insane theories like this, people get hurt.
Oh,
well, that was fake news.
I wonder if he really believes. I wonder if the president really believes this, because I mean, I've been joking about it because this is the first I'm hearing about this deep state. I mean, if you're playing to the conspiracy theorists in your base, or the 46% of Americans, that makes sense. But if you are the president of the United States and you are paranoid enough to believe that there is some conspiracy against your presidency, and you have nuclear warheads at your disposal, shouldn't we all be a little bit concerned about that?
This is the son, right?
Yeah.
But he's competing with the junior, I think.
But he's also, you know, this is not new. This is stuff with Alex Jones. This is all kinds of stuff. What makes it particularly scary is it used to be thought of as insanity.
Right.
It is now sort of being thought of as fact. And I just want to point out, there was no one running children through this pizza store. And they put this information out there. No fact, no checking, no nothing. And someone got shot.
Yeah.
Someone was shot because a man decided he believed it. Yeah. And he drove from where he lived to the pizza shop and with his gun.
I am sent conspiracy tweets every single day that say that my father was not tortured in prison in Vietnam. Every single day. And it's conspiracies that have also started on this alt crazy fringe of the internet. And it is very dangerous, and we constantly are having conversations on this show about Silicon Valley's responsibility in regulating some of this. And I think as you're talking about people being shot, we definitely need to be having conversations. And when you're talking about, last night I was watching CNN and there were people talking about Twitter's responsibility in President Trump's tweets last night about North Korea, but it's just an interesting idea that with technology comes this
great
element
responsibility.
Of this.
We, got to pick it up, fellas. Got to pick it up. This is no joke. People getting hurt. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Before we go on, I've been asked to make a correction. Technically, no human being was shot at the pizza shop.
Oh.
They shot shots in the pizza shop.
Okay.
Shot up the pizza.
But they did not shoot a person in the pizza shop.
Thank God.
Okay?
Thank God.
Well, somebody dodged a bullet back
Well,
then.
Thank
I mean,
God.
but the fact that somebody thought it was real enough to bring a gun and shoot up the building
Yeah.
is kind of nuts.
Right.
But that's all right. I made my peace. I did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
Our special guest co-host, Yara. She has a new series called Grownish. It premieres tonight on Freeform, and it follows her Blackish character, Zoe, as she goes off to college, which is really kind of a tough transition for some people. Take a look.
It had only been 3 days since I left home, and my dad was already 5150.
It hurts so bad.
What hurts so bad, Dad?
My soul!
Dad, stop. Seriously.
But you don't understand, Zozo. The world is a dangerous place now.
So the series deals with a lot of funny stuff, but it also deals with some of the more serious issues young folks are facing in college when they get there, like drugs.
Yeah. I mean, there is a storyline, and I know it's been teased already, but just a storyline dealing with Adderall and Adderall use on campus. And what I do really appreciate about what the writers did is that a lot of the storylines on Grownish are not cleanly wrapped up. But if anything, we're trying to talk about, similar to Blackish, the different views that every character has on drug addiction, but just talking about how normalized certain drug culture is on campus and what kids are stepping into and inheriting, basically, from these pre-set up institutions, and just how it affects the individual.
Well, what's crazy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying I watched the second episode last night about the Adderall problem. I guess kids take Adderall, which is for ADHD, to make them hyper-focused on an assignment in college. And so I asked my son, I was like, that's not true, right? He's like, oh no, I hear the kids do that. And I was like, how do you know and I don't know?
But how come you don't know? Because this has been going, people have been using speed, they've been using caffeine to stay up, to do their tests, to do all kinds of stuff.
Caffeine in college. I did not know
diet pills. That people have done this for years.
It was really eye-opening. It was done so well, by the way. You were fantastic in it. But it was great. It was a learning experience for me, you know?
And similarly for me, just being somebody in which my character is actually older than I am, and so there's certain things that she's experiencing before that's even become a reality in my world. And so there has been fact-checking, aka like calling friends of mine, like, does this happen? And figuring out whether it is actually based in reality, and time again, every time I'm like, the writers definitely made this up. It's proven that it in fact happens on any
Let's ask you about something else, because we were talking earlier today. We saw a poll that young women ages 12 to 18 feel great pressure to send nude photographs of themselves to various folks. And did you feel that pressure, or are you're in a different world a bit, because your mother will come and get you. Your mother would that's not gonna happen. But
I mean, I've always really had the great fortune of being in environments that were supportive to who I am as a human, and not having to deal with a lot of those pressures. Just whether it's my education or just where I worked, that's all been really intentional. But it does speak to just the infrastructure that a lot of young girls have been placed in, and whether it is pressure from other people around them, or even pressure from social media. I think there's a certain message that is being sent about our bodies, and our bodies being sexualized at such a young age, in which we have no control over this, and all of a sudden we are given this kind of burden of, like, you're supposed to figure out how you're supposed to maneuver as a young girl at 12, and it just is seemingly insane because it's like I just got through puberty, now this.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things in which we have to address the infrastructure in which we're saying this is okay, in which people are even found to be in these positions.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm glad I'm old because in my day you had to set up a tripod.
Yes.
You had to take a picture. You had to send it out to be developed. By the time you came back, you didn't want to even show it to anyone. So now, this is this instant, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
Believe me, there was exhibitionism in those days, too.
Yeah, but you had Polaroids. Those you put in the drawer.
You never
You take a
showed-
picture with somebody who's like, and you put it away.
Well, you had control even over a Polaroid because you didn't just send it out
No, you didn't
and then
send
they
it
put
out.
you on
Yeah.
a sex offenders list.
But part
in
of
this
it,
country.
too, is that it's normalized in dating, at least, and I'm recently married. I just got married a month ago. But I remember when I was dating, especially in LA, it would be something that men would bring up very casually, like, send me a nude, send me whatever. And I was, yes, and I am 33, but this is, 4 or 5 years ago. And it is so normalized, like you said, that it's just men are also being taught and young men are being taught. This is something you can ask a woman, and trust me, I texted back, like,
I mean,
hell
that's,
no,
I mean,
obviously.
that's
but
another conversation that we should be having about why is that normal? Why aren't people uncomfortable saying, hey, will you send me a naked picture?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell my kids, you better not ask anybody for a picture of their junk. I mean, that is like so.
But you can say that, but when you're in the moment, but I had moments where you're like in the moment and you're like, I really like this guy. I really, I don't want him to think that I don't maybe like want to be with him someday. And it was, and I remember, and I just recently had this conversation with a friend of mine's daughter where I was like, just imagine any job you have in the future, this photo coming back to haunt you.
And now it will.
Exactly.
Now it's on the internet.
Yes.
But and it will come
can
back
never
again.
get rid of
with
it.
the double standard, though, in which we have a society that objectifies women's bodies, and at the same time, when these images come out, images that many people have been pressured into taking, then they are punished for taking them.
I think that men seem to want to look at women's bodies naked. They seem to think that we, in turn, want to look at them naked, and we don't.
I know.
I mean, unless he's your boyfriend, maybe, but they seem to have a visual
women
interest.
never want that. I never want that.
And not for nothing, just a mild correction, women don't have junk.
They don't have junk?
No.
They have stuff?
No, women have vaginas.
Yeah.
But they don't have junk. Women don't call their bodies junk.
We call it
We refer to men's bodies
as junk
that way. But we
Women have stuff.
we have vaginas.
No.
Yeah. Yes. Why do you say?
See,
What would you rather call
Here
it?
I go.
Well,
Are you with me on the
Okay, we're
embarrassment?
going to call it a pookie because I have to go.
Okay.
So I've been talking about a woman's pookie, and we'll be right back.
Word today.
The new movie, I, Tonya, revisits the infamous Winter Olympics scandal when Nancy Kerrigan was attacked in a plot hatched by Tonya Harding's ex-husband and her bodyguard. Now, the real-life Tonya Harding's opening up about how much she knew or didn't know about it in this new ABC special. Take a look.
I knew that something was up.
You never said to Jeff, let's do this.
No. I did, however, overhear them talking about stuff where, well, maybe we should take somebody out so we can make sure she gets on the team. I go, what the hell are you talking about?
So even if that's all she knew, should she have told somebody about it? And what would she have said? Because remember, these are not the brightest bulbs on the chandelier. They wouldn't. No. You have to see this movie. The movie is spectacular.
Yeah.
You have to see it.
Yeah.
But this idea of overhearing stuff, and do you just run off because, your husband is saying, oh, man, I'm going to mess him up
At
and
the
do
very
it.
least say, do not do that. You don't do that on my behalf. You don't do that
Well,
for
she
anyone.
said she doesn't know what they were talking. They were just talking about what they were going to do to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly say, excuse me, you don't do that for me. I don't need that. I'm a champion. I can do it on my own.
She was insecure, though.
that.
You see the movie, she's brutalized by her mother and her husband. The guy who's plotting with another idiot is her husband who beat her up. I mean, she had a terrible time.
And she paid a big price.
And, if you watch the movie, she's the only one who's ever been able to do what they call a triple Rachel Axel.
Yes.
So she was extremely good on
Really
skates,
good.
and yet she lost to Nancy because Nancy Kerrigan was more of the all-American girl that appealed to, you know, middle America more than she was like Amy Fisher on ice.
Yeah.
Amy Fisher?
She was.
And so that type did not appeal to middle America.
And they called her.
And they penalized her for that, which is not fair.
And they would call her, you know, poor white trash.
Right.
And she was an Olympian.
Yeah.
She's a champion.
Yeah.
A great skater. I mean, a great skater.
Yeah.
But she kept saying, why is not skating enough? And it's not.
She's
It's
like
every
pop
field is
culture
like that.
resurgence right now because of this movie, which in our topic green room earlier, you were like, I sort of know what the scandal is, which makes me laugh that there's this whole generation of people that doesn't know. Margot Robbie, the star of the movie, thought it was a fake story.
Well,
So
she's from a string, isn't she?
Yeah.
So that explains it. Yeah, she doesn't.
But you hadn't heard of it, really.
It was a new story to me. I would be lying if I didn't say the trailer was an entire new world to me where I was like, what happened? And I think it's one of those things that I think how our generation can relate is that there is a level of complicity when you don't say anything.
That's right.
Now, given we always have to understand the context that people are in, and of course safety is an issue, and how safe you feel in the space to then speak up, and that's something that has to be recognized when talking about these women. But at the same time, when we look at these other crimes that happen, there's always that layer of, well, there are people that knew, and if those people knew, said something, even in the cases of what we're seeing right now in Hollywood, there's a level of complicity by the people in the institution that don't say it.
So if you hear something, say something.
Well, if you hear something,
I mean, if you're in a space in which you feel comfortable and your life isn't jeopardized by saying something, I would have to say if you have the privilege of being able to speak without self-harm of any kind, then I would say something.
Yeah, and say something to the person before you go and spread it so that you know what you're talking about. Because sometimes you hear people talking big. You know, saying they're trying to look good in front of the girl or in front of the man or whatever. You have to be able to navigate when something says in the back of your head, this is not, something is wrong here. Something's wrong here. As opposed to, I heard this and then you go and tell somebody and then it turns out not to be what you thought it was.
Imply that you went to them and said, what are you talking about? What was the response?
I have to do it. Truth and Lies, the Tanya Harding story, airs next Thursday night at 9, right here on ABC. We'll be right back.
Come on! You know this is the only place in daytime dishing out the hottest topics.
It is up to all of us to continue the conversation.
This is a cultural revolution.
That's my opening statement if I'm a prosecutor.
Boom, case made.
Tell us more, Joy.
I'm sick of it.
She's sick of it.
So grab your phone and join the conversation.
I'd love to see that. Boom.
And don't miss The View on ABC. Let's go!
Welcome back. So, okay, Kris Jenner just bought the house across the street from Kim and Kanye. And fans of the show are wondering, is she living like way too close for comfort? And the question, I guess, is like, should you be living that close? Should you have space? I mean, like, I don't know.
So Kris Jenner is next door to
Kim and Kanye.
Kim Ye.
And Kanye.
Kim Ye.
Kim Ye.
I mean, Kim Ye, she tweets 24/7, so everybody knows where she is anyway. So what's the difference if her mother's nearby or in another town?
I don't know.
Why are you asking me? But we're all keeping tabs on Kim, is my point.
Quite honestly, I feel like I saw this story and it just hit close to home because I don't know how many times I've asked my family to move with me to college and how many times it's already been discussed. Like, my brother already knows he's living with me and he's like, you'll live right next door to mommy. It'll be great. I'll just go between houses. So that's already kind of our family structure.
It's very Italian. Italian families act exactly like that. My kid lives in my building. Now in another place, she lives right near me. It's very nice, especially when there are children that drop the kid off at Nana's house. It's terrific.
I've always lived close. My mom lives right across the driveway from me. Hi, Mom. I know she's watching. She lives sort of in a home right across from us, and I love it because you have a pair of eyes on your kids. They can go see Grandma, and when my grandmother was alive, she lived with us.
Right.
It's not
love how
uncommon.
people just assume that Grandma wants to hang.
I know.
Well, that's true.
because you just got your kids out of the house. You thinking, oh, I'm gonna go to the club because you think you can do it. I'm gonna go to the club and then hear you. Who is it? Mommy!
Can you come over?
Can you come over and watch the kids?
I do that a lot.
I know.
But I don't think this multi-generational living is so odd in other cultures. You said Italians in Puerto Rico, it's very common.
It's very normal.
I like it.
Normal.
I love it.
But, give mama a break. Sometimes mom just want to hang. She don't always want to be your babysitter. That's what people get older and they discover a freedom after kids grow. And sometimes, and I'm just saying, okay, because I have a great-granddaughter who I will hang out with from time to time. And you just have to remember that sometimes if mom is in her late 50s or 60s, she might not want to do that all. She's spent most of her life taking care.
Well,
and so do something for them.
You need boundaries also. You don't just barge in on your kids.
No.
You call. And they shouldn't barge in.
Pick up a phone.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.